Hi there, Maggie here again with the latest episode of Thoughts from a Changing Mind. Thank you for all those who watched my previous video and for all the comments you've made. They've mainly been positive, which I thank you very much for, but if they're any kind of constructive criticism, I really do value and appreciate, so please do keep the comments coming in. Today I've got some notes here beside me just purely because I'm going to be doing some quotes, a couple of quotes in there, and I want to make sure I get them right, so forgive me for that, but the rest of it is just straight off the top of my head, and I'll just talk about things that have come to mind since I last did a video. For me, when it comes to music and songs, I'm very much a person that likes the sound first. The lyrics come much later. For my wife, it was completely the opposite. She'd get straight onto the lyrics and understand the meaning of it straight away. There's many tunes which I like, which I have really no idea what the words are about, but I just like the sound. But there are several songs that over time, their lyrics may embed themselves in my head and means something to me. One such song is a song by the great lyricist and songwriter and musician, singer Stephen Stills. Back in the 1960s, so we're talking nearly 60 years ago now, he wrote a song when he was in Buffalo Springfield called For What It's Worth. And despite it being written 60 years ago, the lyrics could easily just have been written yesterday because they're so apt and relevant for today. The particular verse in there that strikes a chord with me is, well, just refer to it here. Paranoia strikes deep, into your soul it will creep. Sorry, into your life it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the men will come and take you away. It's very striking that it says that it starts when you're always afraid. And I think today, as I've mentioned before, that we live in a world where fear seems to be far more prevalent. And I've mentioned that people who should know better, people with influence, seem to be almost preying on people's fears in order to maintain control over people. And that's when the paranoia comes in. And it seems so sad that these days we have so much fear out there. And I know we've touched on this before, and I'll probably touch on it again in different aspects, but particularly now, and again, I won't go into it in depth. I'm not going to get political here because it's not the right thing to do. It's not the right forum, and politics is immaterial for what we're talking about. But the one thing I would say is it doesn't matter on which end of the political spectrum you are these days. People are in fear of what is being portrayed by the opposite end of the spectrum. And now, with the midterm elections coming up any day, it's a perfect time to try and hit back, if you like, and try and answer that fear by using what control you have, which is to go out and vote. I can't, I'm not a US citizen, so I can't vote, but I don't mind which party you support, what you believe in or anything else. Don't live in fear. Go out there, gain control by using your power, which is to vote. Anyway, getting off that subject and expanding more into what I wanted to talk about and how fear can affect our lives and what we can do about it. It's people, when you're in fear, it can also drive you to do things because you're fearful. And I know that, as I've mentioned to you before, that I'm very, very lucky. I've been in a very good environment. People have been generally positive to me, but there's a lot of people who face very real dangers because of the situation they're in, and that fear is very real, and I get that. And sometimes, as a defense mechanism, they feel they have to do things to protect themselves. One thing I've come across quite frequently is that people feel they have to be as presentable as possible so as to maybe deflect some of the negative responses they would get. And sometimes that can be an overriding panic and paranoia that they have to be presentable because they live in fear of the reaction they will get. And some of that is very real, as I say, but sometimes it can actually be generated by something which is far less of a worry than is in their minds. So there's a certain amount of trying to please other people and being beautiful for other people rather than doing it just for ourselves. As I say, I'm just referring to my notes a little, if you don't mind. I think I mentioned to you before that when it comes to presenting, I mean, obviously we all want to get better, and practice makes perfect. And hopefully I'll look back on these videos in times to come and it'll think, you know, how amateurish it all is and how much I've learned in makeup and everything else to be better than I am now. But it's something that's part of the natural development. It's not something that I feel I have to force. It's just something that comes naturally. And a lot of that comes in time. You've just got to build up to it. And if up to the time where you feel you're presenting professionally, should we say, it can fill you with a lot of anxiety and fear. And what I would suggest is we've got to try and find a way to control that so that we're not living in fear, and that we're doing these things, as I say, for ourselves. And the one thing that's come across more often than anything in the work that I've been doing in my own personal therapy sessions and what I've been talking with other people is that you have to grasp your concept of yourself. You have to understand who you are and understand that whatever you are, wherever you're going, whatever you've come from, you are you, you have a right to be you, and you are beautiful. And as RuPaul keeps telling us, you know, how can you possibly love someone else if you don't love yourself? I've paraphrased that, but you know what I mean. And it's so true that it's impossible to actually love someone else until you've got a grasp on loving yourself. And unfortunately, it's taken me a long time to realize that, and I've made plenty of mistakes up to this point, but I'm beginning to realize that. But linking it to what we were talking about, fear, is that once you have confidence in that, once you see yourself and you love yourself, no one can take that away. That inner beauty, no one can take that away. You have a right to that. It is real, and people can try and criticize you for how you look or what you say or anything else, but your inner beauty, the way you perceive yourself, nobody can take that away. And that should give you strength and confidence. And talking of confidence, confidence is one of those things that you can actually fake it till you make it. And that goes a long way with sometimes breaking the ice. And the funny thing is that if you deal with people with confidence, even if inside you're scared to death, if you deal with that situation with confidence, people respond to that confidence and the whole situation goes better. And because of that, that then gives you a confidence, and then your own confidence builds and builds and builds, and eventually that confidence is real and not fake. And again, that's something that nobody can take away from you. That's something that you control. It's so important to, as I say, take control of what you can. And that is something you can control. You can control your perception of yourself, your love of yourself. And we've talked about lyrics. There's another lyric for another song. It's the Eagles, Already Gone. Not quite as old as the previous one, but there's a part in there and it says, and oftentimes it happens that we live our life in chains and we never know that we hold the key. And that's true in that a lot of times we go through life fearing things that sometimes are very real, as I mentioned earlier on, but sometimes they are actually things that we worry about far more than we need to. And in fact, as the song mentions, we actually have the key. We have the ability to stop fearing those things, stop letting it control us. We have the ability to realize we have a right to be us and to love the way we are, the way we want to be, and take pride in ourselves. And once we do that for ourselves, we have the ability then to pass that on to other people and do it far more successfully. So I've rambled on a little bit, and maybe this is a good reason for not having notes, because sometimes it can force you to try and stick to a plan when it's best sometimes for it to come out of your mouth just spontaneously. But the main thing about all of this is, as I say, is self-awareness, awareness of your own beauty is so important, and we can have that affirmed by other people, certainly, but having our own awareness of it and taking confidence in that is something that no one can ever take away from us. And I want people to be aware of that, because that will give them strength in whatever phase of the journey they're on and whatever they're having to face externally. When it's just them in the dark on their own, that's something they can always take comfort from. So anyway, I hope that makes sense to people. I hope it gives some people some comfort. Do come back to me with any, say, comments or criticisms. I really do want to know, because I want this to be helpful to people. I don't want it to be any sort of self-aggrandizement. That's not the purpose. It's here to help. So if there's a way that I can help better, then please let me know. Also, send some prayers for me if you like, because I'm going to start dipping my toes into issues concerning friendships and relationships, and that's something I'll probably cover in future videos, which are central to a lot of the journeys that people go through like this. And there's a lot of thoughts out there which are quite normal and yet very confusing. So I'm trying to start making sense of all those myself. So say some positive thoughts would be nice, and maybe I'll come back to you about all that later. Anyway, take care everyone. Big hugs from me, and I'll talk to you again very soon. Okay, bye for now.